the podcast starts.
Hello, dear listener, and Merry Christmas. Welcome to the podcast on which we like to talk about horror, but sometimes we like to talk about other things, and often we like to swear. I am one of your co-hosts, Dan, sometimes known as TD Velasquez. I write about and love film and TV and horror, and today I have the rare delight of being joined by three of my esteemed co-hosts. Harold Whittock sadly can't join us, but I am joined by the fabulous film teacher and lecturer, Kirsty Warrow. Hello, Kirsty.
Hello.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Are you having a good one?
Well, at the moment I'm just tired, and that's a lot of pre-Christmas shenanigans. And I wish that before I became a parent, somebody told me about the admin that is involved in children and Christmas.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. If you all have a similar emotion to impart, by all means, just say what Kirsty said. I'm also joined wonderfully by the writer and film screenwriting teacher, Ian Winterton. Hello, Ian.
Hello. How you doing? I'm looking forward to a Christmas day of being tech support to a 9-year-old with his Lego.
Right.
and various other things that I will have to fix. But yeah, it's all good. And I'm very excited because my 15-year-old, this is horror adjacent.
Nice.
I have bought the Jaws boat set in Lego, which he is going to go nuts because he has no idea I bought it.
And I suppose, being 15, he's not listening to this episode then.
Listen to this, no. No.
Fair enough. I would have loved that official Lego Jaws set when I was probably younger than that. I did make my own Lego Amity Island. I would have been absolutely in clover with that. That's fantastic.
It's a brilliant one because it was like a civilian, and they make these suggestions, and then Lego pick up the ones that are really good.
Oh yeah.
So it was a civilian suggestion to do the Jaws boat, and now it's an official 80 quid set.
80 quid.
So 80 quid of Lego,
Ian,
but it's going to look amazing.
You calling them civilians?
Yes, I couldn't because I'm very tired. I couldn't think what you call people that don't work for Lego.
But suddenly I really like the idea of Lego personnel somehow being like the military.
It's almost like they're in a cult.
Who says they're not?
Because they are very, very into Lego. And I did read somewhere that there's so much Lego that Imperial Stormtroopers in Lego outnumber the human race 8-1. And I've been saying that as though it's a fact for a long time now, so it might as well be.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of Lego around. A lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, we haven't even got on to introducing Stella yet, have we?
No, indeed. Our final co-host, as you just heard, is the wonderful film studies lecturer, Dr. Stella Gaynor. Hello, Stella. How are you doing?
Hi, Dan. I've already been talking, so it's all right. I would like a Jaws Lego set, and I didn't realise that I wanted one.
80 quid, but they're probably all sold out now, so they're probably £1,000 on the internet.
All right, fine. But yeah, I don't have to do much Christmas admin anymore because I've got a 15, nearly 16-year-old, and it does make it easier when you say, "What do you want for Christmas?" and they just go, "A phone."
Money.
Yeah, just want a phone. It's that I can do that. I can do that months in advance as well because you don't actually need that on Christmas Day. So yeah, it has got slightly easier as they've got older.
Wonderful. Well, it is indeed Christmas time, and as my nod to the festive season, I have a bottle of not Baileys with me. I call it not Baileys because I can't afford Baileys, and also stole some of this from a family Christmas party. So this is Hotel Chocolat Velvetized Chocolate Cream.
Wow.
And I'm going to give it a pour and be sipping it as we speak, hopefully inaudibly, and hopefully it will taste like Irish cream and not blood. We will see. Yes. And I watched this. The subject of today's episode, I watched after having my early family Christmas dinner. It's a week before Christmas as we record, but my family always do everything early. So I staggered home from an incredible repast at 3 a.m. and brought myself down to earth by watching The Exorcism, which is something that I've wanted to talk about for ages, even though I can't really say exorcism. So this was my suggestion.
You've only had a sip of that as well.
Yes.
I know, yeah. One sniff of the barmaid's
Here
towel.
we go.
And it's gone.
You're making me jealous. I've got no booze in the house.
Oh,
Yeah,
guys.
I do.
Well, I'm sure you will rectify that. Okay.
Kelly has got a bottle of Bailey somewhere. It's a tradition in our house that Kelly buys about 4 bottles of Baileys and they all get drunk before Christmas. And then we finally go and buy the one that's going to be for Christmas. So I bet she's got one somewhere. Ooh.
Fair enough.
Right. Oh,
Anyway,
we've set Ian's spider senses singling.
I'll do without. I've got me cocoa. It's suitably bourgeois for the film, isn't it? That we're all talking about.
Indeed.
I'm looking in my Welsh dresser for the bottle of Baileys. And that is like something out of The Exorcism, isn't it?
Indeed. So, listeners, you've hopefully all seen The Exorcism because Stella and I gave you a little heads up in our previous episode and on our website to watch it if you can, because we're going to spoil it to death. I will describe the plot now and you will hear everything about it from beginning to end. So if you've not seen The Exorcism, details are in the show notes. This is your last chance to stop listening and go watch it, which I highly recommend. The Exorcism is an hour-long play broadcast on BBC Television in November 1972 as the first episode of the horror anthology series Dead of Night. Written and directed by Don Taylor, it uses a Christmas setting to tell a socially conscious ghost story. An affluent couple in their 30s, Rachel and Edmund, played by Anna Cropper and Edward Petherbridge, have bought an old remote farmhouse and had it converted into a second home. They are using it to host a Christmas dinner with their friends Margaret and Dan, played by Sylvia Kay and Clive Swift. While the dinner is being prepared, the couples discuss the comforts of the converted house and how a luxurious modern lifestyle has become more important to them than the socialist values that they were raised with. The living room even features an antique clavichord, which Rachel demonstrates by playing a mournful tune, only to find herself disturbed as she realizes she can't remember knowing it. As the couple sit down to dinner, the power fails throughout the house, the lights, cookers, even telephone rendered useless. They put this down to an ordinary power cut and, rather than waste the food, begin to eat and drink by candlelight. However, when Edmund tastes the wine, it seems to have turned to blood.
It's not wine. It's blood. It's blood! Taste it!
And when the others try to eat the food, it causes them to be sick and convulse with hunger pains. Rachel goes upstairs and sees the skeleton of a dead child lying on one of the beds, but the apparition cannot be seen by the others. The couples come to believe they are being affected by mass hysteria, which they try to break by leaving the house, only to find they are locked in. Margaret notices that outside the windows there is nothing but pure dark. Edmund tries to smash the windows with a hammer, only to find that somehow the glass resists the blows. Rachel begins to sense that the 4 of them have been selected to be taken from the earth by higher forces, At this point, a wind rises up and the house begins to collapse around them. Eventually, the chaos dies down, but Rachel now seems to be possessed.
I, Sarah Jane Morby, born a Christian, aged 26 years, a married woman, but now a widow. I'm lying here on a straw mattress with my 2 children, Robert and Jane. There's a little water, but nothing to eat. We have none of us eaten for well over a week at least.
She relates the harrowing events leading to the deaths of she and her family. After her husband Robert had been unable to make enough money to feed the family due to lack of work, he took to poaching, but was tried and hanged for the crime. The local squire and his brother the parson being unmoved by the plight of Robert's family. Sarah Jane and her 2 children ultimately starved to death in the farmhouse, but not before Sarah Jane witnessed the squire's family engaged in a sumptuous Christmas feast as his daughter performed on the clavichord the melancholy tune that Rachel would later repeat. Before dying, the illiterate Sarah Jane had recited her story aloud to the walls of the farmhouse in the hope that her family's plight would somehow be remembered. Now the possessed Rachel leads the others upstairs, where they find that the house has returned to its historical state and see, lying on the floor, the bodies of Sarah Jane and her children. Margaret whispers,
I understand now. Now I understand.
Next morning the house is silent as police officers descend upon it, and a television newsreader follows up a report about the worsening famines and economic inequality in the world, with a story about 4 people who have been found starved to death in a house full of food. I will relate my story of how I discovered this show. Like a lot of things that I love, it was mentioned in Jonathan Rigby's book English Gothic, and it happened then to be repeated on BBC 4 over Christmas 2007 when I was staying at the home of my best friend Baz and his wonderful family, and after everyone else had gone to bed, I was left alone with the TV and switched it on, and there was this play, and I was like, oh, it's that thing I'd read about. So I just watched it. And I've seen it a few times since. It's become a wonderfully alternative Christmas staple. But I think I'm right in saying that none of you had heard of it until I mentioned it to you for this episode.
No.
Not hugely. I think I'd heard of the Strand via the, but only very vaguely because of the Stone Tape being... Stone Tape was going to be part of Dead of Night, wasn't it? And then it wasn't. That's
correct. So Dead of Night was a 7-part anthology series that would have been 8 parts, and the 8th part would have been the Stone Tape. But for some reason, even though the Stone Tape was made by the whole same crew, it was decided to transmit that as a standalone thing on Christmas Day. So this episode that we're talking about today was not transmitted on Christmas. It was transmitted like in early November. And the Stone Tape, which as a storyline, if I remember correctly, has very little to do with Christmas, was transmitted on Christmas Day. Unfortunately, of the other 6 episodes of Dead of Night, there's only 2 that survive, which I haven't seen. So this is the only one I've seen, but it stands alone. It's directed by Don Taylor, who also directed During Barty's Party, which we talked about many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It really reminded me of Barty's Party as well. I didn't know that until I looked him up and went, oh.
He's a theatre director mainly, and I don't know for certain in this case, but like in Barty's Party, they rehearsed and shot it like a play. The whole thing was done in an hour-long take, and I suspect this was the same. Stella, what did you think of The Exorcism?
I think that they are swingers.
Yeah.
Come on, you can't tell me that that's not what they were all intending to do before everything went before everything went to shit, you know that's what they were doing.
That's why he was so frustrated when all the lecky started going wrong. It's going to be cold now.
And they do this every year. That's quite convincing.
Yeah.
Every year, that's their little thing. I think, given that it was done by the same fellow who did Barty's Party, I think I preferred Barty's Party more. I think that was a bit more chilling. Whereas this one, it lots of the same sort of things, like the way that it ramped up the tension in a way that was at the same time slow enough, but also at the same time fast enough to get it into 45 minutes, however long it was. I thought that was really good, and I really enjoyed it. And there wasn't a second that I was bored. But I didn't find it as genuinely chilling as I did Barty's Party, because I still think about that and it still bothers me, quite frankly. It's sat right it lives in my head. But yeah, it was good. It was amusing. I liked it. Would I watch it again? Yes, and I think I would watch it at Christmas again.
Oh, nice. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I don't think it's as frightening as Barty's Party. I think Barty's Party is straight up terrifying in a different way, whereas this...
And I was not expecting it to be at all. I was just like, Dan, what the hell was that?
Whereas this is kind of subtly disquieting and kind of... It's intended to be thought-provoking. Don Taylor was not really interested in horror. He was interested in a social message.
Was he interested in a communist revolution? Judging by his output.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Big fan of Karl Marx.
There's a really good podcast, which I'll link to in the show notes, where the late Don Taylor's son, who's also a director, John Dryden Taylor, talks about the history of the piece and how his father was approached to write an episode for the horror anthology show and wasn't really interested until he came up with the idea, which was, I'm vaguely quoting, "I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick 4 middle-class people in a farmhouse and kill them."
Fair enough.
Yeah, it did make me. Maybe it's because I'm working in schools at the moment, and but it straight away made me think this is like a sort of BBC ghost story version of an Inspector Calls, with its very didactic socialist message, which I thought was. I mean, I really liked it, but I thought that was probably the weakest aspect, was that its message was very much hammered home, but I still really liked it because it was chilling and I was enjoying it and going, oh, this is quite chilling. And then when they get to the monologue, I just thought, wow, I was absolutely transfixed by the monologue. I thought that was absolutely superb. When she's sort of possessed and they didn't do anything fancy at all apart from just concentrate on her face. So I can see why this is performed a lot as a stage play. From what I've read. And it made me go, I want to put this on as a stage, so we should talk about that, Dan, because I think doing this as a stage play would be brilliant.
It did make me think, it's weird that we've never even had that conversation, but it could work.
Yeah. I mean, well, we could when we get through the conversation, I've got sort of thoughts about the end, and especially in regard to how that ending. It's a bit of a damp squib of an ending, a little bit, and that would be something to really grapple with if we did do a live version or something. But before we get onto that, what did Kirsty think?
Yes, Kirsty, what about you?
What did I think? I had many thoughts. First of all, and I'm asking this question with massive risk that I might make myself sound really stupid. So just, bear that in mind. Why is it called The Exorcism?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not explicit about that.
It's not the best title, is it?
No.
Well, the ghosts and the ghosts have been exorcised, I guess.
Yeah, but I suppose, yeah.
But it's.
I know what the intention was.
Go on.
But it's not like implicit in the text. I think it's deliberately the writer giving it a title which, would fit in with the genre, but what he means is the opposite of what it normally means. So arguably the living people are the ones being exorcised. The house is exorcising them.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Thank you. This is why I need you, Dan, to explain these things to me, because, sometimes I don't always get them.
Yeah, he's not just exercising them, and he's therefore he's exercising their entire imperialist running dog class.
Yeah, okay.
But it's weird as well because The Exorcist has obviously come out 2 years after this, so that's completely ruined the title.
Yeah,
even more than it would have done at the time.
Any sort of nuances. Yeah. So that was my first kind of. I just ended up being really confused because I was expecting a much more literal exorcism. I really liked it, and I found it really effective as like a play, really. And it very much had that kind of theatre quality. I agree with the kind of, response in relation to Barty's party, which was more, wild and unexpected, I think. I found myself, I got a little bit distracted by the 70s RP pronunciation.
Yeah, I kept repeating words that they were saying. I was sat in this room and just saying the script back to them.
My favourite bit is where Clive Swift says, "Deja vu." You're suffering from deja vu.
Yeah, exactly. And that made me think: was this a point where people, didn't say that, didn't know what that was?
Maybe, yeah, I think so.
But no, I think, but I think a part of what I felt was that I thought it just could be a really atmospheric, really, really atmospheric piece where, unsettling things happen, but nothing much happens. And for my taste, I think it dived a little bit too much off the deep end at the end. Like the, kind of prolonged close-ups of the bodies, which, didn't really work for me, I think. I'm still processing it, if I'm completely honest.
I'm not, maybe they do linger slightly too long. I don't think they're actually very long shots, but too long is, however long too long is, it can be just a second too long, can't it? I think when you have the reveal of the bodies at the end, they do look fake, but I'm halfway to thinking, yeah, but I've never seen an emaciated corpse of someone who starved to death. Maybe it's good that it kind of looks inhuman. And also the fact that it's not one body, it's a mother and two children, and you can't quite make out the difference. It's like a kind of fossilized structure.
No. I found that difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
No, I mean, it depicts a really horrible event, but it really owns it, because it is like that. I mean, it's weird because it is related to the sort of stone tape theory, isn't it? Like almost like this suffering has gone into the walls, kind of thing, and so it really her suffering, and they're the first people to have come anywhere close, and by some complete coincidence, they're lapsed socialists, so they are punished accordingly. And you could just hear his father just going, "Well, that'll teach him. My son first against the wall." It's just like
For me, though, again, the ending was a little bit like I just sort of I found myself remembering is it Meaning of Life? The ending of the Meaning of Life.
Oh, good.
With
salmon moose.
Yeah, but because they're all at a dinner party. There's a dinner party and they all die.
Oh, with Simon Jones in it. Yeah, I need to watch that again. Yeah,
so it felt very.
And
John
Cleese is the Grim Reaper.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've watched that far too many times, that film. You fucking Americans.
I've not watched it enough.
None of you have got any balls. Or something like that. Always, let me tell you this, buddy. Let me tell you that, but none of you have got any balls. I think it's something like that.
Oh my God. You veered that into Trump. Oh my God.
Oh, you did, yeah.
It's the Grim
I
Reaper.
definitely heard.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
God, that's
that's
horror
not what you want to
adjacent,
see, is it?
but yes.
No. That's horror.
That's horror,
Yeah.
straight.
But yeah, I thought. I mean, in a way, you can forgive it because it's so much of its time that on the nose socialism. It's the same period that sort of. I mean, it reminds me of my childhood because even though I was born in the year this was made, my childhood was full of things like this, like slightly middle class kitchens and people being a bit lefty but also being bourgeois. That was kind of so when I watched The Good Life, for instance,
Right.
that felt like my life because my parents were Tom and Barbara Good, middle class but we owned chickens, and the people next door and my auntie and people were like Jerry and Margot, and we were like muddy middle class, and they were like proper middle class with Sherry. And so that's kind of this kind of did almost make me go, God, this is my parents' generation. This is how I remember things being when I was like 4 and 5. You know, this all the fashions, the feel of it, and that politics was in the air in that kind of way that it isn't today. I guess because Thatcher hadn't happened, and all the things in between. It was still a much more left. Well, being left wing was much more common. Very left wing was much more common than it is today. But yeah, but having said that, I did find the whole. It was so didactic; it was almost ludicrous. But it was kind of part of the charm of it. Was quite how on the nose the message was.
He fixed me this branch meeting look and said, "Any, my son, this is no way for a socialist to live."
Indeed.
So I told him in that case I'm not a socialist.
What did he say to that?
Nothing very much. I think he was rather shattered. So was I.
Oh, the blackmail that goes on between parents and children.
The other way around.
After all, if one is forced to live in a bourgeois society against one's will, as it were, I don't see why one shouldn't enjoy its legitimate rewards. I think we should be concentrating on how to be socialists and rich.
We could maybe have done without the message being quite so hammered home. We could have just had them being quite horrible bourgeois people without them talking about socialism at the beginning. But yeah, it's a minor quibble because I really did like it.
Yeah, I guess, again, because the writer's intentions were very overtly political, he was being a bit Bertolt Brecht, wasn't he? He wanted to actually change people's attitudes and behaviour with the piece, and I guess if he'd made it subtler, that wouldn't have happened. Yeah.
Newsflash, it didn't happen anyway.
Well, I don't know. If you listen to that podcast, there is something of that, actually, but I won't spoil it. And it, you know, I think the line that really stuck in my head, which maybe you could have still had that line without all of the kind of overtly political build-up, is during the monologue when Rachel is possessed by the ghost of Sarah Jane and is recounting their whole tragic tale, and she says,
"And I thought this could never be forgiven. No circumstance, no degree of self-interest, not even ignorance can excuse this feasting and dancing whilst on the same planet, in the same village, people are starving."
That line tickled my guilt, you know, and made me think, God, are we all guilty of this?
Yeah, no. That whole speech was really well put together. It was very angry and it was very real.
It was very angry, yeah.
And it was horrible as well, because it was a way of showing someone starving to death without showing them starving to death, because it was just just the experience being in this modern woman, which is really quite clever, because if you was to show a woman starving to death, she probably wouldn't be shouting quite so much. So it was her despair. It was like she had voice. So like the Exorcism in reverse, which I really did like that. The only bit, I mean, what I was talking about before was how the ending, because we're sort of told by Kenneth Kendall of all people,
yes,
on the telly, the newsreader, kind of it felt a bit weird. Like here's the police coming in, okay. But then to be told by Kenneth Kendall on the news that 4 people have starved to death, did you not think it felt a little bit weird and neat to have that happen?
Yeah.
Whereas actually, I'd want to see them realizing they couldn't get out and they were going to starve to death, and maybe watch them starve to death a bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
So that's the bit I'd like to work on if we did it live. Was maybe we don't need a newsreader to tell us what's happened. We could have them screaming as they realise there's no way of getting out, and they are trapped in a room with a ghost.
Or with 3 corpses.
And they are going to have the same fate as her.
I think the ending is kind of informational in that it tells you what has happened and the point, which took me a while to realise is because she couldn't write her story down and no one else has ever known what happened to her, her fate has now been recreated with these modern people in an age where it will be on the news and it will be written about and it will be remembered. And I think that's the point of us hearing about it through the newsreader. But yes, it is a dramatically unsatisfying ending. It's like somebody walking on stage at the end of a play and going, and then they all died. And then they joined the army and never came home. You know, instead of actually having an end scene, you just have someone telling you what happened. And it is unsatisfying.
And because most people think like Stella, they'll just go, "What went wrong at that swingers party?" We'll probably never know.
So Christ, they took it seriously, didn't they? Maybe that's the ending you should write in.
Somebody swallowed the key, didn't they?
I'd see that play.
Yeah, but so none of us have seen the other Dead of Night ones then, apart from the Stone tape.
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, no.
No.
You've probably caused me to spend more money because I'll probably go and buy that DVD. Because the DVD sounds like it pretty nifty. I think it's a BFI one.
Yes,
but it's got all of the surviving episodes, and it's got the scripts of the ones that haven't survived, and some documentaries
correct.
And things.
Yeah.
So I think I might go and purchase it.
Yeah. Christmas present to yourself.
Yes.
It has an essay by Dr. Derek Johnston, who I think is known to you, Stella.
Yeah, he is, yeah. I did a thing about Ghostwatch with him.
Yes. I mean, unfortunately, there are only 3 surviving episodes of Dead of Night, so in terms of value for money, the box set might not be great for viewing content, but I would like to see the others. There's one with Anna Massey that's about a woman who's apparently, this is what it's apparently about, although I don't know how explicit they were able to convey this using the mores of 70s British TV, but it's about a lonely woman whose sexual frustration manifests as a ghost. And that sounds interesting. And the other one's about a ghost happening on a passenger airliner.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one. Yeah. No, I definitely want to watch. The others. But I was going to say about the stage versions. Just the bizarre thing I read on Wiki just before we came on was there was a stage version, and the actress who was in the lead for the stage version, this was after it had been on TV, died of an overdose.
She died, yeah.
And
yeah,
just weirdly, because it's Christmas time, she was Midgeor's auntie.
Yes. Mary Ewer, that's right. Yeah.
So while we're in Christmas time. But old Midgeor, his auntie died of an overdose, and then the woman from the film version had to come in and do this theatre run because she died.
Yeah, she stepped in virtually overnight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I'd be really interested in doing a version of this, and I've always thought Barty's Party as well. Like doing that with some lovely sounds, Maybe we should do a
such good sound
maybe
effects.
We should do a sort of double bill of his plays.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the fact that in this play you've got 4 actors on one set makes it perfect for that kind of fringe theatre approach. And even more so with Barty's Party, I feel like, although he didn't write that, it was Nigel Neal, but I feel like between them, it's almost if they looked at the Exorcism and they thought, how can we make this twice as scary and claustrophobic? And the answer was by halving the number of actors.
And bringing in rats.
Yes, off-screen rats.
Scary rats.
That you never see.
Yeah.
And it was just perfect. But
it was strange seeing Clive Swift as well, pre-fame.
Oh, yeah. And I spent half the time going, who's that? Why do I know him?
Me too. But then it clicked and I was like, oh, it's Mr. Bucket.
Yeah.
So, Clive Swift, most famous and probably due to be remembered forever as Richard Bucket.
Bouquet?
Hyacinth's husband in Keeping Up Appearances. But in the 70s, he was actually his nearest thing to a typecasting was that he was in TV horror a lot. So he's in several of the M.R. James ghost stories at Christmas.
Right.
He's in Nigel Neal's Beasts, which is the series that Barty's Party came from. He's not in that episode, obviously. He was also in... he's in one British horror movie, Deathline, the one about cannibals in the London Underground. But he did a lot of this sort of stuff on TV. He's also in the radio horror series with Vincent Price, The Price of Fear. So he just kind of got everywhere, and he's a natural for it somehow.
And obviously, being a Doctor Who geek, I know him from being on Starship Titanic.
Yes, much more recently.
In again Christmas, in the Kylie Minogue Christmas special with David Tennant. And he's renowned in Whodom for giving the rudest interview to anyone. Like he really was very dismissive of Doctor Who, and they just decided to print his rude interview in Doctor Who magazine because he was so rude to the interviewer.
The kind of strap line of the interview, I remember very clearly, said, "It's all good banter," which was like code for this guy is a sod.
Yeah.
Apparently he was lovely and they just caught him on a really bad day. But that Christmas when he was on Doctor Who was actually the same year that I saw The Exorcism. Huh. So it was like the Christmas with Clive Swift.
Yeah. I could think of nothing better. Especially with his cravat. I mean, that was a groovy cravat he's got in The Exorcism.
It was lovely.
You know, his son Joe Swift is one of the presenters of Gardener's World.
No, I did not know that, but I should tell my mum.
Excellent factoid.
Because she watches Gardener's World. It's the only thing she never misses, is Gardener's World.
Joe Swift is an extravagant dresser, and I think Clive in The Exorcism looks more like his son than he did in anything else ever. Just because of those fashions. He is in Excalibur as well, I just remembered.
Oh, of course he is, yeah.
So that's horror adjacent, isn't it?
Yeah, everyone's in Excalibur, though. We need to do Excalibur one day.
Yes, we should.
I'm well overdue a rewatch of that.
Yeah, me too, actually.
I bring greetings of great gladness.
Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without Ian doing a Nicole Williamson impression.
I do love Nicole Williamson.
Quite right, too. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left. Is there anything else about The Exorcism that anyone would like to say? Or indeed anything about Christmas?
I'm looking forward to the Christmas thing this year, Mark Gatiss.
That's what I was going to ask. Are they doing something?
Yeah, well, I just heard him on Radio 4 talking about the latest thing.
It's an E. Nesbitt ghost story.
Yeah, I was going to say, of 5 Children in It fame.
Yeah, E. Nesbitt, yeah. The Phoenix and the Carpet, 5 Children in It.
Yeah.
When's it going to be on?
I believe it's on near midnight on Christmas Eve. They like to put them on just before Christmas Day begins. So it's probably around about 11 o'clock or 11:30 on Christmas Eve.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. I will try and be awake.
Ghost Story for Christmas. Woman of Stone. God, I couldn't bring it. I knew they'd built something because he was talking about how that's been the reason it hasn't been made, because it needs quite a lot of physical stuff and the budget was never quite there. Even though they weren't really going to make them out of marble, but they still required quite a lot of budget to make these weird statues. So, yeah.
I'll be watching that.
So, yeah. The Woman of Stone. But, yeah, so, I mean, Mark Gatiss, bless him, is very much someone who this era of ghost stories on television is what he's recreating.
Yeah.
And we need more of it.
Yeah, we do.
Lots more of it.
No, we do. I agree wholeheartedly. But as long as there's always one at Christmas. I mean, I think it's now been an unbroken run of maybe 4 years that there's always been one.
Yeah.
And for a long time, there was nothing spooky at Christmas. Whereas I just want a bit of spookiness at Christmas, even if it's only half an hour. I think the year before last, when they had a Mark Gatiss thing, and they also had the Inside Number 9 Christmas special, which was about overnighting in a church with Simon Callow, as I remember.
That was good.
That was great.
Yeah.
Just having those two things to watch.
Yeah, and they did the track tape mid-off as well, didn't they?
Oh, that was a long time ago, though. That was like 2013.
God, was it? Time means nothing anymore.
Just too fast.
But yeah.
Gatiss did that, and then there was about 5 years where they did nothing, and then they did a couple more, and then there was another gap. But then I think maybe the Mezzotint was where they started doing them every year, and that was, I think, 2021.
Woman of Stone is a case of modern writers improving on titles from the past, because the E. Nesbitt story was called Man Size in Marble.
Right.
Which is not a scary title.
Right, okay.
So I could see why he's changed it to Woman of Stone, because that's more scary than Man Size in Marble.
Women.
Well, yeah, especially the Woman in Black. There's
women are scary.
The Woman of Stone, but yes, although it's about 2 nights, so I don't know why the women bits come in, but we'll find out, I guess. But I'm looking forward to watching that. It's only 30 minutes long.
That's enough. Then I can go to bed. So it'll already be too late.
10:15 on Christmas Eve.
Write that down as well.
On BBC 4. No,
BBC 2. There's no new content on BBC 4.
BBC 2. Well, there's the War Games. 90-minute colorized version, Doctor Who and the War Games.
The definition of not new content here. Let's not get into that.
That's all the colours. All the colours in you, and the editing is new.
That doesn't count.
We're gonna
not their remit anymore.
We're gonna wind up in a second. I just want to mention here's my plan for Christmas Day, as well as obviously watching The Woman of Stone. Or will I do that the night before? Who knows? But no, I won't, because I'll be at midnight mass, which wasn't a reference to Mike Flanagan, but hey, we got to say midnight mass on this podcast. Yeah, it's always good.
Hey.
On Christmas Day, I think there is a reunion special episode of Outnumbered where all the kids have grown up. But the thing is, I taped the Outnumbered Christmas special in 2013 and never watched it, and I still have the recording.
Scary.
So I'm going to watch that and then travel through time, and they're all going to get 11 years older. And then I'm going to watch the new one.
Is it the same girl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they all of them. I saw a photo of them. They all look like, okay, yeah, I can recognise them all, the kids. Apart from her, I literally can't see. I can't see that young girl in the woman she is now. I mean, I didn't stare for very long, but it just was like that. The other two kids, you can sort of see them. You can see that, oh yeah, I recognise their faces. They're now grown up. But the little girl who used to be like the weird, precocious one does not look like her young self. So it made me really... I wouldn't be surprised if she was like a different actor or something.
Or it's just really good contouring.
Maybe,
I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, it's not horror adjacent.
No.
Yes. If we want to talk more about our number, we'll have to do it off mic.
Unless they've taken a very interesting narrative turn.
At one point, Hugh Dennis might have a glass of wine and say, "This is blood." We'll see.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to end up like the Colbys at the end. But they're all dead. The precocious woman kills them all in some outlandish plot. And that's why she doesn't look like she used to do, because she isn't actually the same person. She's an imposter. She's a doppelganger.
Not a very good one.
There we go.
But anyway.
Yeah, shit one.
Yeah, not a very good one, yeah. I realised as I said that. She's a shit doppelganger. That's the twist.
How did we get here?
Because I mentioned that number. Sorry, guys.
Dan,
I did.
You derailed us again.
My friends,
Right.
Thank you so much for joining me this Christmas. Kirsty, thank you so much for joining us for our little Christmas feast of mental imagining.
Absolute pleasure.
Ian, thank you so much. Stella, thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
You're very welcome. Listener, you have our gratitude for joining us. This was our Christmas episode.
Can we pluralise the listeners? Like, I have some sort of ambition. Listeners.
No, I'm speaking to them personally and directly.
No, he's got to create intimacy.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never been good at creating intimacy.
Stop.
Let's go before this becomes a different podcast. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay.
And Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh dear, I'm getting hysterical.
You have been listening to And Now the Podcast Starts, an Ambisol podcast, presented by Kirsty Warrow, T.D. Velasquez, Dr. Stella Gaynor, Ian Winterton, and Howard Whittaker.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to extend festive felicitations to you all. Have a merry Christmas and as happy a New Year as is possible in the current circumstances. And I also take this opportunity to say how very chuffed I was to have my face transformed into Vincent Price's face for that little illustration. Theatre of Blood, yes, I do like that film. Fear no more the heat of the sun, nor the furious winter's rages. Thou thy worthy task hath done. Home art gone and ta'en thy wages. Big Bill Shakespeare. So anyway, yes, enjoy the festive season, and I'll see you in the new year. Bye.
That was Howard. We'll be back in January when we'll be talking about the Omen series, among other things, possibly including Theatre of Blood. Hear us then.
Special thanks to Greg Hume for our original theme music. Our original artwork is by Kirsty Warrow. Please search One Crow Left on Instagram, Etsy, or Redbubble to see and purchase more of Kirsty's work. All clips from films, TV shows, trailers, and musical works are used for the purposes of criticism in the spirit of fair use as defined in the US law and fair dealing as defined in the laws of Commonwealth nations. No copyright infringement is intended. Please visit our home on the web, andnowpodcast.com, for more content and contact details. You can follow us on Mastodon, Blue Sky, and even Twitter, which we refuse to call X. It's an insult. X, the unknown. Our handle for each is @andnowpodcast. Meanwhile, Threads and Instagram users need simply search @andnowpodcast. On Facebook, search @andnowpod. If you'd like to donate to help us with the costs of making the podcast, please visit patreon.com/andnowpodcast. Donors get early access to upcoming content and other exclusives. This podcast was produced and released by Ambidextrous Solutions Limited. And now the podcast stops.